SpaceX Starlink versus ham radio. Which should you use in case of an emergency? Let's jump into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time today. We're coming to the end of some fireside. So good, so good. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a very special day. Instead of me rambling on about some Starlink something or some technology or video or something, I'm not doing that today. We're going to do an interview with a great guy over at the HamRadio 2.0 channel. I'm really interested in ham radio and SpaceX Starlink in combination, and how do they kind of mesh together, so to speak. And I know that Jason over here on the HamRadio 2.0 channel will be able to answer a lot of my questions, and hopefully you're interested in it too. Over here on our coast, we had the hurricanes that went through, and now on the other coast, we have, of course, the fires. There's a lot of emergency first responders that are out there. Some of them are using SpaceX Starlink, some of them are using ham. What is the difference between the two? And is it good to actually have both in case of an emergency? And I think Jason will be able to answer this for us. Once again, from HamRadio 2.0. Before we jump into the conversation with Jason, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content, throw it a thumbs up. That's always helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, do all of those things. Click this notification button over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you'll be notified of it immediately. And if you want to say thank you for all of my hard work on this channel, there's a thank you button right up down. There's a thank you button right down here. Click on that, give $1 or $2 if you like. If not, it's perfectly fine. Consider becoming a member of the channel. That would be even better. And if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks, check them out. They're free. Go to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. And if you want more SpaceX Starlink specific content, I've put together over 410 videos just for you. All of them. 410 videos, helpful how-tos, tips, tricks, what to do, what not to do, what to buy, what not to buy, and of course the why behind all of it, because this channel has always been and always will be about the why. Without further ado, let's jump right into our conversation. All right, guys, welcome back. So today we have a special guest on, Jason Johnston. I'm going to get it right for once. And he's from HamRadio 2.0. I was on his show about a month ago? 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago? About a month ago. And we just had a blast just talking about Starlink technology and, of course, ham radio stuff. So today, since he's on our channel today, I want to talk a little bit about ham radio and kind of mix the two together. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Do me a favor. Tell everyone exactly who you are.
Okay, long story short, I'll try not to make it too long. So I used to sell, I used to have a website where I sold radios and antennas and like accessories and whatnot. And there was this one radio that was brand new around 2013 or 14. And I kept getting the same question over and over again about how to program it from the front panel. So I made a very, very crude video. Like I took my phone, there was no lighting, there was no microphone, just the ambient audio. I made an 8-minute video, says, here's how you do it. You press these buttons and go here, go to this menu, do this. And I put that up on YouTube in, I think it was around August of 2014. And I don't think I looked at it again until like Christmas time. Wow. And I went back to it, and it had like, I forget the exact number. It was either like 3,000 or 6,000 views, whatever it was. Like I had sent that link to maybe 5 people, right? So through the magic of YouTube algorithm that happens that you and I know about today, I didn't know about back then, I started getting all these views. Well, I started doing research about ham radio channels on YouTube, and there were a few of them out there, but not too many. So I started doing I officially started in May of 2015 doing just how to get interested in ham radio, how to do things in ham radio. The reason it's called 2.0 is because it talks about what is new, what is next, new technologies, new modes, new radios, new this, new that inside of the hobby. Most people don't realize that because we get a lot of questions about, is ham radio dying? Will the latest thing is Starlink going to kill ham radio? And the same, yeah, I mean, it's a legit question realistically, but it was the same question that was asked back when cell phones came out. It was the same question that was asked back when the internet came out. And since 2006, ham radio has been doing nothing but growing. It's been growing since 2006. And the reason it's 2006 is because that's when they dropped the last Morse code requirement for some of the higher license tiers.
Oh, okay.
So since then, it's just been growing exponentially. We actually have more people licensed today than we ever have in the history of the hobby, and it's going to continue to grow. In my opinion, I think it will anyway. So it's to talk about that and how people think that it's dying. Some people think it's dying. Some people think, oh, it's yesterday's technology and la la la. And then we see stuff like Hurricane Helene come along, and we see how useful it is,
Yes.
which is what you and I spoke about a little bit on my channel. So my channel is just to basically talk about how useful it can be, and how ham radio is a communications tool, but once you get into it, it's actually much, much more than that as well. So
yeah, it's almost like the prepare for the worst, hope for the best, but always have a backup type of thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think it's great to be able to have, because I think people become very myopic and they focus on one thing, and then what ends up happening is when that one thing disappears, they're like, okay, now what? And you've kind of turned me on to the whole ham thing, because I do understand that not only do you have a backup for internet, like for me, we now have SpaceX Starlink. We have T-Mobile home internet, and we have fiber. Fiber finally came to my location. This was last month after 32 years.
Ouch.
32 years. So now we have all three. And then people always say, well, aren't you going to get rid of, T-Mobile? Aren't you going to get rid of Starlink? Or, because now you have fiber. Well, what people don't understand is fiber goes down all the time. And, for us, or for me especially, but people that are doing anything with the web, or maybe you're working online, or maybe you're doing Google Meets, or you're doing whatever, you need to have a strong, solid connection, right? So you have to have that redundancy. So for me, I have three. That's a little bit, a little bit much, but I would say two is not a bad thing, especially when you see like T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T Internet Air, that's like $50 a month and it's unlimited. Right. At that point, you might as well have that redundancy. But now how about if, the crap really hits the fan and now these services aren't available? Ham's been around forever, and it doesn't take a lot of power, and you can actually reach out and touch someone at a distance. And that is like the big, big thing, and be able to, reach out and say, listen, I'm in distress. I have a problem. I have an emergency. I have something going on. Or even better, everything is fine. And that message is so massive. And matter of fact, during the hurricanes, when that whole DTC happened with Elon Musk and T-Mobile, eventually they said only T-Mobile, but all of the carriers actually got Starlink DTC service, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we talked about that on the show. But when that happened, there was like hundreds of thousands of text messages that were just like, I'm okay, or whatever. Or whatever. So very, very powerful. I like the idea of having that, redundancy. So as far as like ham goes, how do you see it in comparison? Because like you said, you get all these, naysayers like, our ham's dead because we're just going to use SpaceX Starlink now. We have this dish, I hear it all the time that, people are like, now that the dish, there's a mini that you could literally plug into a Jackery or something, be on the go, throw it on the floor, and now you have high-speed internet. Well, why do you need, that handheld radio anymore?
Yeah. Well, let me back up and first say that the emergency communications aspect of ham radio is one little sliver of what ham radio is all about. It is it can be very useful for off-grid and emergency communications when everything is down. But that's not really, in its essence, that's not really what it's about. Ham radio is more of like an electronics experimenter's license, where you get to learn about electronics, you get to learn about radio technology, you get to learn about two-way communications and shortwave receivers, and which are all over the world, and get to learn about this sort of thing. So people kind of, I came up with an idea for a video a year or two ago, and I never made it. And I might make it one day. And the title of it would be "Ham Radio is not for preppers," and what that basically is saying is, because I get the question on my channel a lot, well, why do I need to learn all this if all I want to do is communicate down the road with my family in case the power goes down? I'm like,
Grid's down.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's ways to do that without a ham radio license. You can get a CB or a GMRS license or FRS or several other radio services to do that. Ham radio is much larger than that, and in my opinion, offers more than that, and offers a bigger capability to do that. But that's not its primary focus. That's not its primary goal. It's not what ham radio was designed for, although it does it very well.
If you have SpaceX Starlink already,
right?
What do you need a ham radio for? And like you said, I agree 100%. This is not necessarily as a direct replacement to SpaceX Starlink.
Correct.
And I do believe, while it's not for preppers, which I get that, I do feel like it is a really good backup for emergency, for sure. But what people don't understand also is that not only can you talk using ham, but you can also download and upload data. And I don't know, just talk about that a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah. So you can send, I remember telling you when I was interviewing you on my show, there's a thing inside of ham radio called Slow Scan TV, which is basically just what it's turned into now, is just sending memes over the airwaves. So you can set up a radio in one location that runs on its own battery and a radio in another state that runs on its own battery. No internet, no shore power, no nothing, just a radio and antenna at two different locations, and they can send pictures back and forth to one another. You can do the same with emails. There's a program called WinLink that will send an email. You can send an email from radio to radio, or from radio to WinLink gateway in other parts of the world, other parts of the country, and I can send you a Gmail from my radio when I'm out in the field with no connections at all. So there's things like that you can do. I keep going back to the Hurricane Helene, which is because it's so recent. That just happened a few months ago. And I keep going back to that. And the point is that when a hurricane, a bad tornado or a hurricane, or maybe even an earthquake or a tsunami or something like that, depending on what part of the world you're in, comes through your town, Helene wiped out all of the infrastructure in that area in North Carolina and Tennessee for several weeks. And you can have 3 internet dishes on your house, and if a hurricane comes over and tears the roof of your house off, it doesn't do any good. Now, the same thing could be said if you have a ham radio tower set up. You can, that gets destroyed as well. But ham radio is a little bit more portable, and now we're seeing with the Starlink Mini how portable it is. I've actually got a couple of videos on my channel about using the Starlink Mini in the field. So if you've got a backpackable Go kit, as it were, with Starlink or ham or both in a backpack, and you want to go set up in an area, then you're going to be good to go either way. But people will be like, well, cell phones this and cell phones that. Cell phone towers get ripped out by hurricanes, and then when your power's out for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and the cell phone towers that remain don't have any power, then they're dead in the water.
Yep.
So that becomes a non-issue at that point in time, because you can't use cell phones. Starlink doesn't have that problem. Generally, we haven't seen it yet anyway, but you don't usually have storms in space, and the movie Armageddon with all the asteroids where it destroys all the satellites hasn't happened yet. So we'll see if that holds true.
Like electromagnetic, sometimes we'll get like storms that come through, and then they'll kind of disrupt stuff. No, absolutely. Talking about that, I think that it's very interesting that, people will look at SpaceX Starlink and then also look at ham and kind of see, where they kind of mesh together. I think is very interesting. And like you're saying with the towers, people don't think about this. It's like a tower doesn't have to be destroyed for it to not work.
True.
And it's just a simple case that the tower doesn't have power, and now you do not have any connectivity at all. There has been a lot of folks that go into areas. A perfect example is after the hurricanes, the two that ripped through. And they would go into areas, and now they have no communication at all. They're relying on Google, right?
Like
Google Maps and stuff, and they're like, oh, where in the hell am I going? What am I doing? They're lost. They're like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I print a map up? What is a map?
What is a road atlas? I don't even know what that is.
What do you do with that? Right. So, and that little things like that, like there's certain use cases, I think, for everything. But I do like the idea of the ham being like a really cool tech hobby to kind of learn and explore and do things with. And I want to ask you, if someone wants to get involved with ham, would you suggest them putting a small antenna up at their home, or would you suggest just getting a small radio to kind of test out? And if so, what is the cost on it? And is there like some type of licensing that goes on with it, like yearly, or is there different frequency licenses and all the rest of this stuff? Maybe you could kind of touch on some of that, because I know there's going to be people that are interested in it.
Sure. Yeah. So in the United States, there's 3 levels of license. The technician is the first level, general is the second level, and extra is the top level. And with each license upgrade, you do get access to more frequencies. So the CB radio band is 40 channels on this, 40 frequencies on the same band, around the 26, 27 megahertz band. GMRS radio is 22 channels on the same band, around the 462 to 467 megahertz frequencies. Ham radio has multiple bands, 30, 40 different bands we can be on. So think of like CB radio or GMRS radio times 30 or 40 different places where you can talk. So you do get more license privileges as you upgrade your license. It does take a 35 question test to get the technician, and a 35 question test for the general, and a 50 question test for the extra. It's all written, multiple choice. You can get books. There's multiple videos on YouTube, including my channel, where you can get the exact questions and answers that are going to be asked on the test. There's not going to be any surprises. You get the exact material. You go take the test. It costs like $10 or $15 to take the test in most places. The license itself is $35, and it lasts for 10 years.
Jeez. So that is cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly thought it would be a lot more than that.
Yeah. No, it's not. It used to be free for 10 years. And a while back, the GMRS license used to be $70 for 10 years, and you just go sign up for them, and they'd give you a call sign, you're done. At the same time, when they lowered that price of $70 to $35 for a 10-year license for GMRS, they created a $35 fee for ham radio at the same time. So now ham radio and GMRS is both a $35 license for 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, you have a 2-year grace period after your license expires. Most people renew before it expires. You don't have to test again. You either renew it up to 6 months before it expires, or up to 2 years after it expires. You renew it. You get to retain your same call sign, and you get to keep going. And you just pay another $35 and you're done.
So 35, I guess, would be like administrative fee or whatever to keep track of everything or whatever. It's that's literally nothing. I thought it would be a lot more to get involved in. So as far as radios go, is it like the $50, $100 radio, or is it the $500,000 radio? And then also, is it portable or something that is attached to the house that you're using? Well, what is a better way to start out with, I should say? Portable,
handheld. Most people start out with a handheld. This day and age, most people start out with a Baofeng, $22, $25 on Amazon. Anyone can buy a Baofeng and anyone can listen to ham radio frequencies. You can get scanners that pick up ham radio frequencies. You can get apps on your smartphone that'll pick up ham radio repeaters from around the country, around the globe, really. You can buy radios that will listen. Anyone can listen all they want to. You're not technically allowed to key up on a ham radio frequency until you have your license. So I don't suggest doing that. Please don't do that. But anyone can listen. So if someone wants to get into it, the first thing I suggest is Google the town that you live in. I live in a town called Grapevine. So I would Google Grapevine ham radio and see what ham radio clubs are near you, and go visit a ham radio club and see, and ask them questions. Most of them are some of them out there can get kind of cliquish. I live in the North Texas area, and I've been a ham here for about 3 decades, and I've been to couple dozen clubs in this area, and they're all great. There's a lot of really, really good clubs in Texas, down in the Houston area as well. So you can, and I know of a lot of good clubs in Florida out there where you are. Yeah. So it's there's a lot of really good clubs out there. So go to a club, ask questions, get information that way. There are YouTube channels out there where you can ask questions. I myself have a Discord server where we welcome questions in there. There's a subreddit on Reddit called Amateur Radio. for that. That's pretty good. So it's fairly easy to find information and get your questions answered this day and age with all the resources that we have available to us. And most of us are very interested in helping others learn about and get licensed.
So do you think that it's good to get one of these $20, $30 radios in comparison to an app on your phone to be able to listen in? Since at first you're basically only going to be listening in, or is it worth still getting the radio so you can actually get into it, hold it, and kind of, fiddle with it and learn about it in comparison to just listening to the app?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it would also, if you do get a radio to listen in your area, you would be able to hear the traffic that's actually near you.
Oh, okay.
So the app you can get, like I can get on the app now and I can listen to a couple of local repeaters. I could also listen to repeaters in Florida or California, Canada, whatever. And that's good because you can kind of hear the lingo. Right. You can hear what they're talking about. You can hear what's going on. If there is storms in the area, a lot of the times people use the apps to listen when storm watch and storm Skywarn type events come through areas and whatnot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The National Weather Service, most of those guys are licensed hams. They'll get on ham radio repeaters. Ham radio operators will get out in their vehicle and they'll do storm spotting. That's why a lot of people get into it, actually, is to do storm spotting. So you'll be able to listen to that and kind of hear how fun that can be in different areas around the country. But yeah, if you want to hear what's local to you, then, and not every repeater is available on the app. In fact, it's kind of limited. The app is kind of limited as far as how many repeaters. There's probably a lot more repeaters around you that you don't know about than there are on the app. There might be 1 or 2 on the app. And there might be 10 or 20 near you. So you'll be able to listen to the traffic around you with a radio. You're not going to get real far out with the $25 Baofeng radio as far as listening, unless you live on top of a mountain, and then it's going to work really well.
Yeah, in Florida, there's no mountains. Everything is flat.
Yeah, here too. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to listen very far, but you will be able to listen and hear some activity in the area near you. So sure.
So let me ask you, so with the ham radio, and let's say you had one of those, would you also be able to dial into air traffic, police, emergency services, or anything? What else is available through that?
Some radios, some ham radios will pick up air traffic. Air traffic is on AM. Most of your Baofeng handheld radios, for $25, you're not going to get air traffic most of the time. Although a couple of the cheaper ones will. Air traffic is on AM, where most of your ham radio and Baofeng type radios are on FM. So, but some of them do airband receive. You can find some that will do airband receive. I was just tinkering with one last week. I live about 10 minutes from DFW Airport. It's right there.
Oh, okay.
And so it's easy to hear air traffic out here. So yeah, you can get that. Police and fire, it really depends on the police and fire in your area. If you live in a major metropolitan area like Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Orlando, something like that, most likely your police and fire is on a digital encrypted system.
Makes sense.
And you're not going to be able to listen to it with a little handheld radio. If you live more out in the sticks, out in a rural area, and the police and fire is still on analog or maybe on UHF frequencies, then sure, absolutely, you can hear that through some of the handheld radios you can get. So it's very dependent on what the police and fire EMS near you use. RadioReference.com is a fairly good resource to look up radio frequencies for whatever area you want to look for. So you can go in there and look for police and fire in, Podunk, Arkansas,
in the middle of nowhere, and be able to dial in and hear what's going on. Basically.
Correct.
So that's really interesting. It really is. I mean, it would be definitely something fun. It's something that I definitely want to look into and kind of play with, because it's just neat. I think you just have to be a little bit of a geek, a little bit of a nerd, a little bit of a techie, and you can see that this could be not only fun, but it could also, it could be life-saving. It just depends on what's going on in your area. I do like the idea to be able to hear in what's going on with storms and stuff. In Florida here, we don't have as much tornadic activity as someone, like in Kansas somewhere. Yeah. But during the last massive, what was it, Helene, that mass storm that came through, we got hit with the dirty side of it, let's say.
Yeah.
And it spawned over 300 tornadoes that literally relocated cars from like front of homes to the back of homes over the home.
Yeah.
Which is just, insane. But, we never get that. But it was definitely wicked. And in those cases, I mean, everything is down. Now, what are you communicating with? Now, luckily, we did have the backup for our SpaceX Starlink. We did have a means of communication. But I can tell you, our tower, our local AT&T T-Mobile tower was down. Now, I don't know if that's because, maybe a main grid feed cable, power cable that went to it went down. Who knows? We have another massive tower not that far away from me. They are still producing limited amount of speeds. I mean, it's like, and this is an AT&T tower, a massive tower, but it was somehow damaged, and I don't know. They've been working on it now for, what has it been now? 2 months now? I don't know, 3 months. It's been a while. Yeah. So, and it's the same type of thing. So anyways, let me just ask you about your Starlink experience. I know you're into the ham, you got into Starlink, and now you're playing around with the Mini. What do you think about the SpaceX Starlink Mini, or just SpaceX Starlink in general, just for off-gridders or for someone that is an RVer, someone that just wants to hike, having the ability to throw a Mini in a backpack and then just pop the kickstand out, throw it on the ground and hit it up with a little bit of power and be able to have internet anywhere. What is your thoughts on it? What do you think about it?
I really like the Mini. I've only had it for a couple of months. And I did a video on my channel where I took it out and I plugged it into one of these USB-C charging bricks that you get off of Amazon. It's about, this is not it. This is my phone.
Yeah.
But the brick is about this size.
Right.
And I plugged the Mini because the Mini will run from, you have to buy the cable separately.
Yeah,
but the Mini,
it's the dongleification.
Right. Yeah.
It's the dongle for everything.
So it runs, so you could get a barrel connector that goes in the Mini and it has a USB-C on the other end. So I plugged it into this charging brick. And I ran it I have a hunting lease about an hour and a half north of here. No facilities there at all. No well water, no nothing. It's totally boondocking.
Wow.
And I ran it out there for about 2 hours on that charging brick, and I was checking emails and watching videos and that kind of thing. It worked great. I haven't really had much chance to use it since then. I've ordered a mount for the roof rack on my truck. I'm going to mount it to the top of my truck, and that's what I'm going to use the Mini for. When the RV package, the Starlink RV package first came out, I ordered it immediately, and it's got, I think you called it a Gen 2, the motorized dish.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. The rectangular dish.
Right.
I've still got that. I take that with me places. I took it to the Grand Canyon when we went there 2 years ago. I took it to Yellowstone last year, and I took it to and I've taken it to various state parks here and there. It works great if you have clear line of sight to the sky.
Right.
It does not work so well under canopied 20, 30-foot canopied pine trees and palm trees. Not palm trees, but pine trees is what we had in Grand Canyon. We couldn't get it to work in Grand Canyon. We couldn't get clear line of sight to the sky because the RV park was covered in these beautiful trees. A beautiful experience, but no Starlink signal there. So I'm told the Mini is very much more narrow banded and doesn't have that problem with the tree covering, but I've not tested it myself yet.
I've heard something similar as far as the Mini, that people are getting a little bit better rain fade. So that means that holds true to what you're saying when it comes to being able to break through the canopy of leaves, which is great. I also heard not only is it, let's say, better when it comes to rain or breaking through those canopies, but also it's faster on the download, it's faster on the upload, and it has slightly better latency, lower latency, just by just a bit, like 1 or 2 milliseconds, but still it means a lot. That means that they are figuring it out. Right. And that the dish and the antennae that are in it that are actually focusing everything are actually doing a better job with the Mini in comparison to the version 2s that are out there. I always tell people that if you want to get into SpaceX Starlink, and you're someone that's older, or if you're someone that has to put the dish on the top of a roof or someplace that you do not have access to it ever again because you're having someone else do it for you, I would recommend getting a used Gen 2, like what you have. I have two, that has that motorized top, fully articulating 360 degree plus angular deal. Whereas you put it up there, it finds the best position, it locks in, and that is it.
And you're done.
You're done. So you don't have to worry about it anymore, go up to the second story or something. But with the Mini, you don't have that. Whereas it literally has nothing. It's got a little plastic kickstand that puts it at 15, 20 degrees or something like this, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you call it a day. But what I would say is that, and I think that you probably would agree that the Mini is kind of like the beginning. I think the Generation 4 will just be a dish that you can literally throw flat anywhere. I don't think it's going to have any angle to it anymore. You don't really need angle as there's so many satellites overhead.
Yeah.
Back in the day when they first started, the satellites were all in one kind of line, like right around a certain area. They were in the north quadrant, let's say, north, northeast, north, depends on what part of the country you're in, but let's say the north. And if you're in the southern part of the world, they're going to be in the south to you. And that's just simply it. But now, just like you said, you throw it on the top of your RV, throw it on the top of your truck, throw it up, whatever, pointing straight up, and you have full service with no problem at all.
I never really considered, you asked about off-grid, and the Mini, in my opinion, is the first one that's actually off-grid, because, and I don't remember that larger panel dish, I guess is the Mini and the larger panel dish both considered Gen 3? I don't really know.
Yes, that would be the one that just has the little kickstand. And
it has the kickstand, but it's larger than the Mini. I don't think it runs on USB. But
the Mini is when they put in the barrel connector and the USB-C deal.
So that's in my mind, that's the first one that could be
backpackable,
off-grid internet, if that's such a thing. Because once you get on the internet, you're not off-grid anymore. But off-grid internet, because the thing that disappointed me about the Gen 2 that I got when I first got it, they called it the RV package. And that's what it was, because most RVs have 110 volt, either an inverter or shore power or something like that. Right. And that thing requires 120 volt alternating current. Right. So you're not putting that in a backpack and hiking up a mountain with it unless you're taking a big Jackery with you that's going to run it for a week and a half. So you're just not going to do something like that. Sure, you could plug it into your vehicle and go overlanding or 4x4ing with it. You could do that. But something that's backpackable is more of an off-grid communication tool in my opinion. So that's why I was so excited about the Mini when it came out, and I learned about the USB-C, and I'm like, I gotta try this out.
Absolutely. So, the whole idea of being able to use battery, that's what I said from 2 years ago. I said, they need to move to a means of powering this thing that doesn't require you to invert battery power.
Correct.
Because every time you invert battery power, you're losing 10%, 15%, 20% right off the top, unless you have a good sine wave, unless you have a really good inverter. But for the most part, you're losing, Still
a little bit of loss, even with a really good inverter. But
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas when you just power them directly through battery, it's just a better thing to do.
Right.
Let me ask you, with that small charger, brick, let's call it, that's this big and this thin, you said you ran it for 2 hours. Is that kind of like the capacity and it was just about done, or was there still some left? My question is, how long can you run the Mini on a little tiny brick this big?
Well, that was just about it was just about done at that. I think it was like 2 hours and 10 minutes and the brick died.
And it was a little brick this big.
It's about this big. It's I'm going to forget now. I think it's like a 25,000 watt hour brick. Okay. Something like that. Or no, 22.5.
22.5. Okay.
22.5. 22,500 watt hour brick. So, and the Starlink and the Mini will tell you when you open the app and you look at the statistics of the Starlink Mini, what it's doing. It pulls about 22 to 24 watts.
Not bad, really.
So that's not bad at all. So it ran like that. So obviously the answer to your question is get a bigger brick.
Yeah.
Because they make 30, 40, 50, 100,000 watt bricks. And it's just heavier as they get larger. So it depends on what you want to carry. Obviously.
Yeah, how much you want to backpack? What is backpackable for you?
There's always a give and take, right? So how long are you going to be out? How long do you want to run it? Do you have some of these bricks some of them have a solar panel built onto it, and that's
those are they're usually trash. But what you could do is get one of those little fold out,
right?
50, 100 watt, fold that thing out, throw it on the floor, charge that thing up again, and now you got another 2 hours.
You just get a USB-C to A adapt. Most of those fold out solar panels have USB-A plugs on the back of them.
Right.
Some of the newer ones might be going to USB-C, although I haven't seen that much yet. But you could get a USB-C to A adapter and a 100 watt panel pointed at the sun, and dude, I don't know, it might run that indefinitely. It just depends on.
100 watts, especially if you're saying that it's pulling 24. I see the old ones were pulling about 40 to about 65, and that's with no heater on. When they amp them up to be able to melt snow off them. So at 24 watt, that's nothing.
Yeah, so, nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, so with a 100 watt solar panel that's charging a battery, you could probably run all day long just having as long as you have sun, not underneath the canopy of trees.
Right,
Once again, I think the canopy of trees kills everything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It
doesn't kill ham radio though. Ham radio worked just fine under the canopy.
Ham radio goes straight through it.
I just want to throw that out there, but if you had a small battery that you could run with a USB-C connection, you run the Starlink Mini from, and then you had a solar panel to keep that battery topped off or charge it back up during the day if you had sunlight. You could, in a perfect weather environment, you could run indefinitely on that thing. It wouldn't be a problem at all.
Yeah.
So it's I'm gonna have fun doing experiments with it once I get it put on top of the truck,
right, and
taking it out to just remote areas and driving down the interstate, doing a road trip, and recording a video and saying, okay, I'm doing 75 and here, let's click this YouTube video. I'm not watching YouTube, but I'm going to play this video in the background.
Right. Just to see
how it works, right?
Or if it's doing good. Yeah. So did you hear about them dropping the Starlink residential plus portability? They ended up dropping that. Yeah. Okay. So what ended up happening is if you had your own Gen 2, like the one that you had, the original, you had that Gen 2 back in the day, I think it was 2023 or something, 2022, you were able to buy what they called portability. And what that means is you'd be able to unplug your dish and then go bring it to your log cabin, let's say, plug it in, and now at that location have internet. Right? That was the whole idea with portability. And what ended up happening is they stopped selling it. They're like, shit. It was only $25 extra for this portability thing.
Okay.
So originally it was $99. Let's call it $100 plus the 25. So let's say $125, and you're pretty much good to go to take it anywhere on the continent. That's pretty big, and then they said, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. But anyone that had it was grandfathered in. And at the time I said, listen, if you have it, keep it, because if not, you're going to lose it. You're not going to get it back. So you might as well keep it. So a lot of people did. Well, they finally sunset the thing. And there's no more. Anyone that's grandfathered in will be no longer grandfathered in next month. That's it. It's gone. Everyone is moving, or they're moving them from what is now the Roam, which is 145. Instead of them paying their 145, it's moving to 165 because they no longer have that plan where it's just an additional to that. Yeah. Which is, and a lot of people were nuts about it because they're like, hey, now I'm having to pay an extra $20. Why? And the bottom line is yes, you do pay more, but what they're giving you is the ability to not just move it, but to use it in the move, during the move, like you said, in your car, which was a big thing for that extra $20. But then also you could then throw it in your backpack and take it to Germany, plug it in, and it works there too. Yeah. So now the 165 is like this all-encompassing thing. So let me ask you, with yours, I guess you have the Roam package, because you're saying that you're able to actually drive with it, not just move it from place to place.
Well, I haven't actually done that yet, but yes, I do have the Roam package. So long story short, I signed up for, my wife and I own an investment property on the beach in Galveston. It's actually the second row off the beach in Galveston. So we have to worry about hurricanes down there as well.
Right, for sure.
We rent the house out. It's an investment property. We rent it out on a VRBO type. There's a company down there that does it, but it's a VRBO type vacation rental thing. So during the summer, it pretty much stays rented. And we go down there ourselves in the fall and sometimes for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. The internet down there on that part of the island kind of sucks. And there's basically one provider, and they're just like, yeah, we're the only thing you get, and we don't really care if you're satisfied or not. And that's the kind of the attitude they have.
Sounds like AT&T here.
Right, yeah. It's not AT&T, but it's similar to that. Yeah. So, I tried to order Starlink. This was, I don't know, when did the RV package come out? 2022 or something like that?
About 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Roam package, what they call the Roam package today, was originally called the RV package. You went to starlink.com/RV, and it brought up the RV package. I think that'll forward you to /Roam these days. Yeah. So I tried to order Starlinks. This was before the RV package. I tried to order Starlink for my Galveston house, and it said that the area was too saturated. They're deploying more satellites, and I got on a waiting list.
Right.
Fine, no problem. And I think I put $599 for the equipment, like it's always been for the brand new equipment. I think I put $100 down, something like that, get on the waiting list.
Right.
So fast forward about 6 months, and I get this email because I got on their email list when I created an account and whatnot. So I get this email saying, we got this new this new RV package that will allow you to take, because the thing that I had always read, I've never heard about this portability thing.
Right.
The thing I always read is that if you put a Starlink on your home, it's locked to some grid square. If you take it out of that grid square, it won't work. So when they rolled out the RV package, the email basically said, hey, this will work for RVers, and you could take it with you on the go. It'll work anywhere in the continental United States, parts of Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So I went into my Galveston account, and I took that $100 I put down, canceled that request, bought the RV, transferred the money. It was very easy to do. They let me, keep my deposit and whatnot. And I got the RV package, and I started taking it I took it to Galveston and used it there. I took it up to my hunting lease. I took it on camping trips that my buddies and I went on, and used it in state parks and national parks and whatnot. And and then at the time, I think it was like $135 a month, and then it went to $150, and now it's $165, like you said.
Right.
So that was kind of the journey I did, because I always wanted I wanted one in my Galveston house. I have fiber here in Grapevine. I have 500 megs up and down. I could get a 1.5 gig if I wanted to. Fiber works great. I never have any outages on fiber. Like 3 years after we moved into this neighborhood, they came knocking on the door, said,
wow.
we have fiber. And I said, give me your clipboard. This is the easiest sale you're going to make today. And I signed up for it.
Done.
So
that's 3 years. It took me 30.
No, yeah. We were living here about 2 or 3 years. I had DSL, and they came, and then the trucks were in the neighborhood laying the 5-0, and I'm just waiting for them to come knocking on the door. And when they did, I'm like, here, just show me where to sign. You don't have to give me a sales pitch at all. So I don't need it here. I've used it here just to kind of use it and see what it works like. And it works great here. It's setting it up in the backyard.
Right.
But I really wanted it for Galveston, I also wanted it to take on road trips with me. So I'm looking forward to seeing how well the Mini works when I am moving down the road, because I haven't actually used my Gen 2 for that, because it requires I could plug it into like a Jackery or EcoFlow, one of the EcoFlows I've got.
Right.
I could do that and mount it somewhere on the truck. I never took the time to do that. I don't really care. I don't want to use it that way anyway. So
gotcha. So let me just ask you, as far as when you do take it and do use it, you go to, let's say, a hunting lease somewhere that literally is boondock and live in the woods, where there is nothing. There is no cell tower. There's no connectivity at all. Are you going to have both, basically? Have your ham as well as your Starlink at the time, for sure?
Oh, yeah.
So you have that backup.
Yeah, a couple of... I was talking to another YouTuber the other day about kind of the differences between radio in general and the Starlink stuff, and I kind of came up with an idea for a new video. So I'm gonna keep that in the back of my mind, and you guys watch my channel. I'll say what I think about that. But I've got 2 or 3 of my hunting buddies that I hunt with are hams, and we talk on radios. And the great thing about one of the things I'll touch on, the great thing about radio in general, this can apply to any radio, CB radio, whatever, is that if you're with a group of people, 10, 20, 30, 100 people, whatever, in a caravan of vehicles or at a campsite or at some sort of like camp out at a state park or whatever, and everyone has a radio, you can talk to 50, 100, 150 people all at one time. You key up your radio, you say something, everybody's going to hear you. Okay. If you have Starlink, you can send text messages to groups, I guess. You can do that, but you're not going to pick up the phone and call 100 people at the same time.
Right. Or call it all, like if you're in a location with no cell, period.
Well, if you have direct to cell, which I know it doesn't work on voice yet, but the hope is one day it'll start working on voice.
Correct.
And I think is that coming in 2025?
That's coming now. Well, the voice will be by the end of 2025. Yeah. Text is going to be right now. The text is already working, but yeah, voice, and then I believe the data portion of it comes in 2026.
Right. So let's just say you have full direct to cell Starlink voice through T-Mobile. You have T-Mobile, direct to cell is working great. End of 2025, you have Starlink, you're out in the woods, you don't have anything else. You're still going to call. I mean, you said data's not working yet. So maybe when data works, you can set up a Zoom channel and you can all call into Zoom and talk to each other at the same time. But you're not going to pick up the phone and dial a number and dial 100 people at the same time.
Right.
So if you're in a big group of people,
reminds me of a party line back in the 80s.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like a party. You'd have to set up some sort of party line,
right? Which
nobody does that.
No.
So the great thing about radio, and I'm talking about in a small group environment, like going camping together, doing caravanning, going four-wheeling together, whatever, is that you can talk to everybody at the same time. You pick up the radio microphone, you key up, you say, "Hey, I found, you're the lead car. Hey guys, there's a big box in the road up here. So watch it when you come around this left corner." And then the 20 cars behind you all hear you at the same time instead of, "Hey, text messaging while you're driving, text messaging while you're driving," which you shouldn't be doing anyway. Picking up the phone. "Hey, car 2, can you call car 3? Okay, thanks." And by the time it gets all the way back,
it's already over.
So I mean, it's a quicker form of close localized communication that people take for granted. So, and another thing that I'll say that it's something I was thinking about for this new video I'm thinking about. I'm like, sometimes people try to bait me into this guy that interviewed me last week. He's a good dude, but he tried to bait me a little bit, and he's like, "Well, is Starlink going to make ham radio obsolete?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Did cell phones and internet make ham radio obsolete? No.
Right.
So it's not going to happen. But what's the point? Okay, now think about this from a very, very high level. What is the point? The point is to be able to communicate.
Yeah, period.
And whatever you can use to communicate is what you should use. And I've said this in multiple of my videos. If this is working, use this to communicate. There's nothing wrong with the cell phone. There's nothing wrong with data over a cell phone or text messaging or something like that if you have coverage and whatnot. So if the point is to communicate, then use the tool that you are going to use to communicate. And great. I mean, the point, and like you said, redundancy, and I've talked to other YouTubers about redundancy before. It's like, I'm going to have Starlink. I'm going to have my ham radio. I have a GMRS radio in my truck. I have ham radios on multiple bands in my truck. And I've got a 4G modem in my truck as well that I might retire when I get the Starlink running. I don't know yet. I'm interested in that bridging thing you and I were talking about.
Yes.
Whatever you call it, some sort of bridging where you can bridge two networks together and use the data from both of them or something.
Yeah. I did a failover, basically using a failover fallback using a Raspberry Pi, and like 3 dongles. Of course, we have to dongle everything, but three dongles, USB-C connection, and this is my router in the studio now that has T-Mobile, Starlink, and fiber all coming into it. Gigabit speed, and I tested it, and it actually will do gigabit through it. So meaning that doesn't matter if one goes down or the other goes down, it will fail over to the next and then fall back to the previous, and it literally works. And it costs like what, $60-$70 or something.
Did you do a video about that?
I did talk about it in a video. I didn't do like a step-by-step breakdown, but I did do a video that I showed the tech and like what I did to kind of do it and whatnot. I was basically using the Raspberry Pi with OpenWRT as the router package, and then I married that to MWAN 3, M-WAN 3 is another. It's specific to do multi-WAN through, through Linux, through Raspberry Pi, basically. So that being said, it freaking works. And it works amazingly, absolutely amazingly. I have a question. What do you think about SpaceX Starlink when they have 43,000 satellites overhead and thousands upon thousands of them have eNode Bs built into them, which are basically what converts their satellites into a cell tower, all focused on the planet? Will that affect ham? Will that affect anything having to do with ham? What do you think? Is it possible, or is it just such a far, let's say, a different frequency that it doesn't bleed, let's say, into each other?
Oh, you mean will it affect the radio signals?
Yes.
I mean, I guess it's possible, but no, not likely. I mean, the frequencies are far enough away from one another where it's, because we have cell towers all over the planet today.
Right.
And we have for decades. And it might cause, if you go and set up next to a cell tower, it might cause some noise in your radio. But, I guess it's possible it might start to cause some RF interference, but
the reason I ask was I know a lot of times and you could even kind of chat on this a little bit with the DXing of seeing how far you can get and finding out atmospheric conditions and looking into solar disturbances and all kinds of other crap to make sure that you can get as far out as you can. Once are you still going to be able to hit continent to continent to continent? When we're being bombarded with a ton of external frequency. It's kind of like my thought about it. I could be complete. I don't know how the ham would actually work, but that was a thought that I had, because there'll be so much of it at that point.
Right.
Will that, hurt that distance when you guys, because I hear there's a lot of people that are doing, like, they're winning awards for being able to contact, like, every continent in 24 hours, or, who can reach the furthest, and, from repeater to repeater to this, to that, what are your thoughts?
I don't foresee that as being an issue. I mean, I'm not as versed in that as I should be, but I don't foresee that being an issue. I mean, the sun itself is a radio spectrum, is a radio frequency spectrum. The sun is transmitting radio waves, and that's a lot of the times what we hear in the radio is, sun activity. And the sun's probably going to be more powerful than anything Elon Musk puts in the sky. So I'm not real concerned about it. The frequencies that we use to talk over from continent to continent, over the oceans, over the Pacific, over the Atlantic, from the United States and back, are low enough that it's called high frequency, but it's well below the microwave bands, which is what the satellites are going to be using. So gotcha. I don't foresee that as a problem. I don't really think that's going to be an issue. You might find some issues with, like, your police and fire frequencies, which are up there in the 800 and 900 megahertz range, or with existing cell phone towers on the planet. You might find some issues with stuff like that over there. I don't know what frequency Starlink is going to put their cell network on, so I have no idea. Presumably, it's going to be somewhere up above the 1 gigahertz band.
Right.
So I don't really know what they're planning on that, but is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I think the likelihood is very low.
Gotcha.
So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I know there's, you're always going to hear the Chicken Little stories, as people get all bent out of shape with having so many satellites. And then there's a lot of radio towers that that are having problems, with imaging now, because there's so much, interference, let's say. But, like, what I keep telling people is that, yes, the entire planet will be just engulfed in satellites. That's just how it is. Right now, there's this satellite movement that's happening. China, we see they're launching their satellite, their Starlink lookalike that is going to have 20, 30,000 satellites. Elon, 20, 30, 40,000 satellites. There's going to be a ton. But, that being said, does it really matter? And kind of yes and no. But if you're going to be doing radio imaging, what I would say is use Elon Musk's Starship to go and drop off a massive, let's say, radio satellite in space, that's sitting in geo, like out there. And now all of a sudden, just like they do with the Hubble, just like they do with the Webb, you're out there past all, you're in the darkness, let's just call it, right? And now you don't have to worry about any of the radio frequency. That's all behind you. That's all you're going to hear is basically solar frequency. You're going to hear cosmic frequencies that come by, and then that's it. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. They're going to probably commission very large scale, not only visual, but also audio telescopes, but in space instead of on Earth. It just makes more sense. I mean,
makes sense.
As it is, we're round, and you have like this, this shell that you're constantly trying to punch through and not get distortion, which there always is. But then again, that's exactly what you guys are using in ham, that shell to be able to bounce your frequency off, to be able to get from continent to continent, correct?
Correct. Yep. Correct. Exactly.
So there's good and bad with the atmosphere. It just depends on what you're going to be, what you're going to do with it. So, but anyways, what I want you to do is just do me a favor and tell everybody where they can find you, because we talked about before we went live with the hangout that we're doing here, this chat. There's a lot of crossover. The people that watch me are very much similar, very, very much so similar to the people that are watching your channel. So definitely, if they don't know, where you're located, let them know. What is the best way to get over to your channel and then maybe reach you, Discord, your whatever you want to kind of to tell them.
Sure, yeah. So on YouTube, my main channel on YouTube is called HamRadio 2.0. I have a secondary channel on YouTube called Unplugged, where I talk about RV stuff and overlanding and off-gridding. Instagram and X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, is just HamRadio, the number 2 DOT spelled out, and then the number 0 on both of those platforms. And then Discord is, if you go to hamradio2.com/Discord, that's a permanent invite to my Discord server that I'm in there every day and talking to people. And there's a lot of other people in there besides me who are willing and happy to answer questions about anything and everything having to do with ham radio, off-gridding. I've got a off-gridding channel in there. I've got a Meshtastic thing. If you guys know what Meshtastic is, we talk a lot about Meshtastic stuff in there. But just all kinds of stuff inside and outside of ham radio in that Discord server as well. So those are the best places to find me.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, it was great having you. It's awesome to be able to have you on and be able to discuss things that are not just specific to the Starlink technology, but kind of that crossover that happens with ham. But you definitely got my interest peaked to go and to get into, maybe grabbing a radio and then doing some testing or whatnot. It'd just be fun to do. I'm always looking at something new to do, and this would definitely be something cool. Just like building a router out of Raspberry Pi, whatever. Something.
There's a lot of people in ham radio that are just Raspberry Pi gurus, and just total Raspberry Pi fan was just doing all kinds of stuff with Raspberry Pis. So yeah, if you're into Raspberry Pis and making them do weird stuff, ham radio guys do that.
So you can actually make a Raspberry Pi into a ham radio without a problem. Yeah. In a roundabout way, you can make what's called an all-star node out of one. You can make digital voice nodes out of them. You can attach them to repeaters and make them repeater control. You can do everything with them. So cool.
Lots of stuff.
So cool. There's some videos for you. There it is. That's
I've got those videos on the channel already. So yeah, I'm very interested in your collaboration video about putting 3 networks together. The M-Wave.
Yeah. I'll have to put something together and go into it a little bit deeper. But definitely take a look because you'll see it. You'll see it on the channel where I discuss it, and then it'll give you the high level. So at least you kind of get, how we end up doing it. So.
Sure.
But anyways, thanks a lot for being here. I truly appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
All right. Later.